Welcome to the Savvy Young Professional. My name is Tanida Mullen, and I am so excited about this show today. Our guest, Bryan Chapman from BSimple Financial, is going to break down to us how to really be savvy when we're out there holiday shopping. This is a time of year where it's so easy to break the bank, and Bryan and I are going to chat a little bit about how you can keep money in your pockets and make everyone happy at the same time. So, if you want to know more and you really want to get these tips and hacks for holiday spending, stay tuned. Okay, today I have a special guest on the show, someone that I've personally grown to know over the past couple of weeks. I want to go ahead and welcome Bryan to the show. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Well, thanks. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. This time of year is perfect because this is just, it's the high season. Yesterday just kicked off like the shopping holiday season. I mean, you couldn't even go anywhere. Tons of lines, people out there spending all of their money, getting a deal. I'm not really sure it's a deal or not, but
You
in
hope it
their
was a deal.
brain, you hope it is a deal. Exactly. I don't know how much of a deal it is to go out and wait an hour in line. I mean, my time is worth something, so that for me, I don't really know. But we're kicking off the holiday season, and I really wanted to have you on the show because I know finance is your thing, and you like to talk about keeping it simple. So I really want to first, before we get into me asking you any questions, just give me a little bit of background about you and what it is that you do.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you having me again. And what I really do is I have a blog. It's called Simple Financial Lifestyle. And on that blog, I really just teach people how to simplify their financial lives. What we find is that so many people just make their financial lives more complicated than it needs to be. So it's just taking some simple steps, really kind of really looking at your financial situation, see how you can make it easier. It's and right now what we're going to talk about right now is just simple budget or just pre-planning and having a different mindset for what you do. So website is simplefinanciallifestyle.com, and you can find me on Twitter at BSimple. So I really just kind of tweet a lot of just basic tips that you can do just to help your financial life. Because what I like to say, it's you know simplify your financial life to lead a healthier and wealthier lifestyle. So if you just kind of minimize some things, you can kind of make a better life for yourself. So that's what I like to do on my website.
Awesome. And I know we have the that's perfect because, we really, I think as professionals and, people in business, it's so easy to get into habits of overspending or, before we started this call, you and I were just talking about a situation where I kind of was like, I don't know if I want to pay this price per month for a product. And I know that there's a difference in quality and quantity, but, a lot of the times it really is very simple. And I think that that's a great kind of message to have just to keep it simple. So, with that in mind, going into the holiday season, and I mean, not even beyond the holiday season, but most especially this time of year when people are very generous in their heart. They're getting, people who typically maybe not even have anything to give. They're ready to give everything, their whole life savings, because we've just been kind of programmed to do that. So what I want to know is, what are some things that people need to think about starting now? It's not even December yet. We're a couple days before the first hits. How does someone get in the mind frame to to kind of not overspend during the holiday season?
Well, what you really want to do is sometimes you take the emotion of it out. I mean, a lot of times what we do is we go to the store and we just want to buy everything we see for everybody. Like, oh, that's be great. But one thing you want to do is really just step back and do some pre-budget planning. Just kind of say, okay, how much do I really feel comfortable with spending this holiday season? Because when you come in January, you don't want to have these bills that have piled up. You're like, oh, what did I do to myself? You're just kind of pulling your hair like, why did I do that to myself? So if you just simply just step back a minute, do some budget planning, just kind of say, okay, hey, I want to spend X this holiday season, and I'm comfortable with that. And I know I'll be able to pay that off at the end of the month if you're using credit cards. A really simple way to do it is just have some cash. And when you run out of cash, there's no more spending that you can do. So really just kind of do a little bit of pre-planning before you hit those malls, because that kind of really saves you overall. And just make that list of, hey, I want to spend X on my nieces and my nephews. I want to spend X on my brother or sister, various other things that you want to do. So that's just kind of one of the things that you want to start off with is just kind of do some pre-budget planning for yourself.
Okay. When you mentioned the word budget, and that's definitely a word that we hear a lot, especially with people in the financial industry. Um, but I think sometimes a lot of people don't necessarily know exactly what it means to budget. I mean, it's definitely a buzzword, it's definitely a word that's thrown around. And I think people's ideas of what budget is are different. So if I'm someone who maybe typically does not use a budget, does not know the principles of budgeting, where do I start when it comes to, I mean, and I think this is a perfect time to talk about this because this is kind of small scale. Where do I kind of start when I'm sitting down at the table and I'm saying, okay, I want to budget? How do I approach that in a step by step kind of manner?
What you want to do is you step back and you say, okay, how much do I really want to spend on this person? Say, just take a number. Just say, okay, I want to spend $40 on this person. And then you come up and say, okay, I have, you know how many people you plan on giving gifts to. You hope you know how many people you plan on giving gifts to each year, and say, okay, how much do you want to spend on that person? So one person maybe $40, one person maybe $10, and then come on and total that up at the end of after you've written down everybody you plan on giving gifts to, and kind of say, okay, how much is that at, is it three, four, five, $600 at the end of the day, and you say, okay, are you comfortable with that amount? And not only just gifts that you want to consider during the holiday season, it's also some of these other things that you have to consider. Okay, are you buying new decorations for the house? Are you buying, having holiday parties, foods, various other things that you run into at the holiday season that are unexpected expenses that you may come across. So you really want to sit down, look at the presents and gifts that you want to purchase, and then also any kind of additional decorations. Do you want to put new lights outside? Do you want to put new lights on the tree? Do you want to are you planning on making some food for friends and family? Also, do you have holiday cards that you send out? Hey, look at the cost of holiday cards. So some of those things, just kind of looking at each category, each area. Yeah, it may take a little bit of time to do that, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be looking back on yourself and say, okay, I spent way too much money in that situation.
Right. That's very interesting that you spoke about budgeting, kind of different because sometimes I've heard that you get your number and then you take that number and you divide it out, and you kind of divvy out the funds. But this was a little bit different how you explained it, and I guess that kind of goes to the point that budgeting, kind of means something different for everybody. But how you explained it was, put down what you think you want to spend on people, and then look at that dollar amount and ask yourself if you're comfortable with it, because that kind of puts you in another frame of mind. If I start out with 500, I can divvy that out, and guess what, it's easy to go to 550 and it's easy to go to 600. But if I kind of work reverse and say, okay, ideally in my heart, this is how much I like to spend on everyone, and then I add it up, I might not be comfortable with seeing 660 or 700. Then
Right.
I'm kind of like, okay, let me go back, and little Billy, he might have to get, a card this year only. And so I really thought that's pretty creative to look at it that way, because I think it allows your mind to explore. You don't feel confined, because that's how we typically think. And then you get to see the reality at the end, versus starting with what your quote unquote reality is, a $500 budget. And then you get down the list and you're thinking, oh, I only got $20 left, got to up that budget. So I really like that idea. That was pretty creative. Um, and you also, mentioning about the different things that are going on in the holiday season, because it's parties, it's work events where you have to maybe buy something because you don't have anything that looks holiday appropriate.
Right.
It's so many things that you have to think about during the holiday season, especially when you're out there trying to network for your business, or for something that you're doing. So I think that's a pretty good point.
Yeah, there's just those other little things that you forget about sometimes, and they add up as well as you go throughout the season.
They absolutely do. One thing that does add up as well is the gas money. Like, I was thinking about all the parties and just different events that I have on my calendar for December, and I'm just like, one of them is in San Antonio, and I'm like, wow, I live about 2 hours away from San Antonio, there and back, and I'm just like, huh. You just don't think
You
about
don't
it.
add that up,
You
right?
don't add that up, and I think that's great to kind of think like that. And if you've never been exposed to budgeting before, I think it really will get you in the mind frame of what that's like.
Yeah, just kind of that's why I said do the pre-budget planning ahead of time because as you said, you can be say, okay, I want to spend 500, and then at the end of the day, you're gonna may end up spending six that you didn't anticipate. So
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. Did you go Black Friday shopping?
I did not go Black Friday
Oh,
shopping, but
I'm
my
pretty
wife
sure
did.
that. Oh, did she? Do you have any thoughts behind just this whole holiday? The Black Friday, or we can't even call it Black Friday shopping. We have to call it Black Thursday shopping.
It was Thursday after we had some dinner. She's like, "Hey, such and such store opens at 5. I'm going." I was like, "Okay, have fun, go." I mean, she came back with some things, but she went in with a game plan. Said, "Okay, that's not really a deal." I mean, my wife's all in about finding deals, so
Hmm.
it really wasn't a deal when she got there, but it got her in the door to get there. So that's sometimes what you have to when you do these Black Friday ideas. Is it truly a deal that you're really getting, or is it just a kind of a teaser to get you in the door and then hoping that you buy something else? So that's another thing when you're out there shopping, you find, oh, I like this. Hey, this looks really good. And you end up spending more than you anticipate as well. So make sure when you do it, you kind of stick to what's on your list and only focus on the things that you anticipated buying instead of buying other things that you had no idea you had planned on buying at all.
Right. Well, you have a financial base. Your blog is based on finances. I want to know, what are some of the things that you see people doing that are just big no-nos during this time of year? What are those things that you look at and you're thinking, oh, this person, they got to slow down, or I wish that they knew these fundamental rules of, the simple financial lifestyle?
Here's one of the things that you find a lot. I find in the holiday season is, you're going out there, you're doing some shopping, and when you're at the line, they offer you say, hey, won't you get 10, 15% off on this, on your purchase if you get this credit card? Like, hey, that's not bad if I get 10, 15% off my purchase already. Hey, I'll do that. So what you do is you put that on the credit card that you recently get, and then they say, okay, it's interest free for 3 months. And then at the end of those 3 months, you're like, oh, I just don't have the money to pay it off. So what I see a lot of individuals doing is getting credit cards just to get that additional 10%, 20% off. But then at the end of the day, when it's time to pay it off, they don't have the funds to pay it off, and it just kind of adds more debt to yourself, and it kind of puts you in a bind, and you're actually spending more than you anticipated because that 10 or 15% is probably eaten up in interest when you don't make that first payment. So I think that's one of the things that people I see doing is really adding more debt to their already existing debt that is not necessary. So if you can kind of say no to those those offers, and it'll benefit you. Do you really need another credit card? I mean, if you already have one or two, do you need a three or four or five just to save that 10%? Is it really worth it?
Yeah. I think when we get to this time of year, because of not planning, because of not really thinking about gifts and who you're going to give to, we get in a panic mode. And we get to the stores, we see all these sales, we think they're once in a lifetime deals that they're never going to come around. And, we say, I should probably get that credit card because that blanket that I've been looking at is on sale for 50% off, and it's never, ever, ever, ever going to be on sale. I think it's a mental thing. We see the word sale, and even though every single week there's new sales coming out, there's always something discounted every day, the whole year. You know what I mean?
Right.
We still get in this mental space that says, this is never going to happen again. I need to have this now, and I have to get a credit card to get it because I don't have enough money.
Exactly. That's just more credit card debt and additional credit card debt. You really gotta. Okay. Okay. Even if you pay it off, you gotta think about. Okay. Well, that's one extra credit card I gotta remember every month that I need to pay. One extra bill that I have to add to my financial situation. So if you can eliminate additional debt, it's better off saying no to it than doing it. I mean, another thing you can do is, instead of just focusing on this time of the year, purchasing presents. Purchase them throughout the year. When you're at the store, say, look at a deal. Hey, this may be a good present for X. Buy it then. It may be the same deal that you're getting. It's just not as promoted as heavily as it is during this time of the year.
Right. So keeping your eyes open for deals, and and I heard a story on the news the other day, and it was talking about the Black Friday shopping and how typically during the month of December there are even better deals on most of the products that you see on Black Friday um, throughout the month, but it'll be like on a random day. So maybe December, 7th, there might be a deal on a tablet that you wanted that's, 45% off, 50% off. But because we've been conditioned to think of Black Friday as the biggest savings day, we don't typically look for those deals throughout the month.
No, I agree with that. Is it kind of, if you say, okay, I want a tablet, kind of start kind of doing some research and kind of looking around and saying, okay, just kind of watch around. Hey, look at some deals ahead of time, and then then you look at, okay, it is a Black Friday. Say, okay, is this the best deal I've seen? Maybe not. Maybe it is. But then do you have to wait in line for 2 hours for that tablet at that price? So you can also save your time, and like you said earlier, your time is important. So do you want to spend 2 hours waiting in line to get into a store, whereas you can spend maybe $50 more and get it another time of the year?
So besides people being trapped in the whole the credit card scheme, I guess, getting the credit card at the register, feeling pressured to do that, what are some of the other things that you see people, mistakes that you see people make around this time of year?
Um, Overspending, not with just the credit cards, but just saying, oh, I really need to spend $50 on this person instead of, hey, maybe I can spend $25 and it's a gift. Because sometimes, it's a thought that counts. It's not always how much you actually spent on the item. I mean, another way to do it is make homemade gifts. I mean, if people love eating your cookies or something that you make at home, hey, won't you offer that to them instead of going out there and buying them a more expensive gift? Because people, it's all about the thought that counts than the actual present that you actually provide to them. So, be mindful of that type of thing. We talked about the budgets, we talked about the credit card spending, but then also one of the key points too, I think, is tracking your progress. One of the things you go, you say, hey, I need to buy for little Johnny, um, and then you buy something first day you're out. Well, 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, did I buy something for little Johnny, or didn't I buy something for little Johnny? And you're like, oh, I didn't buy anything. So you buy him something else, and you go back home, you're like, oh, I did already have something for him. So just tracking your progress throughout your holiday season is something that you want to do, because if you put that budget in place and you kind of keep track of it, that's a good way to monitor everything. But if you don't track it, what was the purpose of even putting the budget in place? I mean, if you're not being mindful of it, and as you go through holiday season, scratching off, hey, I took care of him and I spent X. Move on to the next one. So when you go out to the stores, you know exactly what you're going for, looking for.
Right. Having a plan, getting a budget, having a plan, it sounds like that's the way to do it. Why do you think, I mean, because we're talking about that, we're saying, okay, we're gonna have a budget. Oh, we got that idea down. We know exactly what that means. We have a list. We're going out there, and every time, I mean, I hear this story from plenty of people. It's definitely been something that's happened to me. We get out there, and it's a whole nother story. Why do you think that is?
You just get, your mindset is like, oh, well, yeah, this is really a nicer present. It's a mindset thing. You get excited, you get in the moment, and you just buy something that you didn't anticipate buying. Yeah, and you just have to kind of stick to that game plan when you go, because you just see something else and it looks like a more enticing offer, so you go ahead and, oh, let me buy these new tennis shoes, or shoes, instead of, hey, what I anticipated buying, and it's going to cost you a little more. But I think it's just staying focused and keeping that mindset of, this is what I'm buying, this is all I'm buying, I just got to go find it. Or what happens is, a lot of times you get to that last, holiday season's almost here, over, and you get pressured, and you're like, hey, I gotta find a gift, and you just go buy whatever you see that you think would be nice. and you just kind of fall into that pressure. Or it comes to time. A lot of people, they're working, they're busy, they just don't have time to go to the mall, or they don't want to be dealing with the crowds that are out there. So they just end up, buying the first thing that they see, or they go online and buy something really quick to make it easy. So, it comes down to kind of sometimes pressure just to get it over with, get it done.
Definitely. Definitely. I've been in that situation before. I've got my plan. I know how much I'm gonna spend, and I get out there and I'm just like, oh my, I didn't know they had this. Oh, I've never seen this before, and it starts to change. And one thing that actually helped me is, I do give myself a little bit of leeway in the sense that as long as it's in my budget, as long as it's still around the price range that I want to spend for per person, I'll typically switch out something. So maybe I had an idea in my head, but I go out and I see something else. If it's within that dollar amount, I'll make sure I just switch it up a little bit, and I might get that particular present. I have another issue that I know people have, that I definitely have, is seeing things that you think would be good for you. It's supposed to be the time of giving, but you see these things, and they're like, oh, I've been wanting this,
So you buy two.
so you buy two, or you talk yourself out of it. You're like, oh, you don't get it, and then you feel like, oh man, I'm gonna go back and get it, or you convince yourself, well, like we just talked about earlier, I've been wanting this all year and it's on sale and I just got to get it now. And like you said, it's definitely something that you have to kind of prep yourself for and say, number one, you're not shopping for yourself. And if you are shopping for yourself, then you need to add that to the budget. And
Right.
I've done that before where it's like, I know I've been looking for a particular product all year. Typically, I've seen the product discounted around this time of year because it's the end of the year. And I would say, okay, I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on friends and family. If I see what I want for a really good price, I'm going to allow myself to get it. But it has to be just, you have to put yourself on the budget just like you put everybody else on there. It's been my experience with that. And typically for me, I just wait till after Christmas because that's just the day that if there's anything that I personally see that I want, or I have family that I don't have to get it to them on Christmas, they'll be fine getting it after. Then I'll wait till after Christmas, and you still get the same effect. You still get the person excited that they got a gift from you, and they understand, and it's no big deal.
No, I agree with that. I mean, that's a great way also to kind of set yourself up for the next year. We talked about, some of the holiday cards, some of the wrapping, some of the other things that you may have to buy for Christmas. If you kind of buy it after Christmas for the next year, you're going to save yourself some money and you don't have to worry about it in the budget, particularly if you have some excess money in the budget that you already set for yourself or allocate to next year's budget because you're going to save usually 50, maybe 70% off on some of those items. So you really get a good deal and it kind of sets yourself up for next year.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, typically the things don't change. When you buy stuff after Christmas, you get it for a better deal. And the next year, it's still the same sets, the same things put together. They just have a different packaging, but you're getting the same products. So don't be afraid to go out there. I agree with that. Don't be afraid to go out there and grab that stuff after Christmas and put it in a closet. And it's not going to be, no one will know the difference. They won't say, oh no, this is from last year. They have no idea.
They don't know. It's a holiday card that says the same thing each year. It says now the only ones that you may be concerned is if it's on it, but other than that, you should be fine with buying those wrapping papers, holiday cards, all of those decorations for Christmas. So you
Yeah.
should,
Don't get they have all those Christmas bears out there that have the year on the foot.
right, right, yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, don't give them a 2014 bear in 2015. That's embarrassing. Okay, so when we talk about the simple financial lifestyle, I kind of want to move a little bit away from the holiday talk and just kind of get into what it means to live a financial lifestyle, a simple financial lifestyle. Because I think this might be something that, as people are out there going into 2015, or even just out there in their shopping and their holiday bliss, they can kind of think back on and keep in mind when they are making purchases and also planning for 2015.
I think the first step is kind of as you go into 2015 is kind of take a step back and kind of assess your financial situation, kind of looking at your situation and saying, okay, how many credit cards do I really have, and how many do I really use? How much debt do I really have? and how can I eliminate it? How can I, get my bills paid on time? I'm tired of paying some of these late fees. I forget. As well as to set yourself up to where you're busy professional. You're busy throughout the day, and things just you just forget things. You just slip up. You don't remember, hey, this bill's due on X day. But if you have things automated, that way you could just check your bill, look at it, say okay, and then you can kind of have it paid automatically. So you just kind of want to step back as you go into the year and just kind of look at where you are and then where you want to go. Hey, am I saving enough for retirement? Am I saving enough for an emergency fund? Because you want to put things in place to make you don't want to be stressed out about your financial situation, but there are little things that you can make and change that will set you up. Automate your savings. Making sure that you're using your 401k or any kind of employee sponsored retirement plans to your advantage. And one of the things I like to do um, is kind of save first. Pay yourself first before you start spending. Because if you pay yourself first, that means you're saving, and then whatever's left over, well, you can spend, and that kind of helps you with your budgeting. You kind of reduce the amount of money that you can spend. Everything else is tied up. So just kind of looking at everywhere where you want to go, where you want to be, and how you can make things easier on your financial situation.
Absolutely. I think it's really good to plan and make sure that people that you're kind of moving forward. And I know that I've definitely have been, guilty of just kind of starting in 2015 or starting in the year, starting in that January, and I think it's such a great idea to get in that mindset ahead of time. And I think holiday shopping is the perfect kind of small way to get into that mind frame. It's kind of a good project or a good thing that you can start with to see how you would be in planning and how what it feels like to think ahead. So I hope that people are, when they're listening to the show, they're thinking about the principles that you just talked about and maybe even applying it just to something small as your holiday shopping. And if you like the way it goes, then keep it going in 2015. So I think a lot of those are some really good tips and ideas, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. So we're coming up to the end. We've been on the phone here for almost 30 minutes. Before we go, I really want you to get into where people can find you. If they want to hear more about you, if they want to get connected to what you got going on, where they can find you and what you have coming up next.
Well, one of the places, the easiest place to find me is simplefinanciallifestyle.com. That's my blog. You can also find me on Twitter under the Twitter handle of BSimple. And what I do there is I come out with a regular post once a week. Every Tuesday, I have a post that comes out. And then also, I've just recently started an interview series to where I interview individuals. Most of the people I interview are kind of people in the financial field that I make connections with, and just teach and just talk about how they've simplified their financial life. What I think is pretty interesting is, yeah, I can talk about how I can simplify my financial life, but when you hear other stories, I kind of want to make it look like, inspire individuals to want to simplify their lives as well. Some of the stories that I've read of individuals that have had, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and that they've been able to, how they've actually been able to simplify their financial life and what it's done. How does it make them feel? I mean, some of these individuals that I've interviewed so far just kind of makes them feel that they have a financial peace of mind now. That big burden is over their head, is no longer there. So just some simple tips that they've offered has been, I think, inspirational, and then just kind of hearing how other individuals do it themselves. Um, and it's not really hard stuff. It's pretty basic. I mean, just one. I always look at it. Don't try to do everything all at once. Take one step at a time, and then when you look back at the end of the day, you're gonna have simplified it by that time. So I think this interview series, which I started last week, I have another one coming out next week, and then probably through January, I have so far probably 6 or 7 different other individuals that are out there just talking about how they've really simplified. And I think it's important to hear other stories as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. We learn best from other people, and it makes sense to look at people who are already kind of where we want to be or have been through that journey. And so that sounds like a great interview series. I'm definitely going to look into that myself. I appreciate you coming on the show. I know this won't be the last time we connect on,
No,
because yeah,
not at all. I'd love to be on again, just helping individuals kind of make their lives easy.
absolutely. Thank you so much. If you liked this show, please go to thesavvyyoungprofessional.com. You can listen to this show, you can share this show, and you can find other shows that we've done with different topics, different experts. Thank you so much for coming on again, Bryan.
Thank you.
You can find all the links and resources mentioned in this podcast in the show